Right, okay, welcome to this week's episode of Epilepsy and Me. Today I've got Joe with me. So we were going to have Chloe hosting with us as well, but she's not very well, so hope she gets better soon. But yeah, so I'll just get started. Obviously, I've put your trailer out today, kind of explaining your epilepsy, but for anyone who didn't see it, explain it. Go for it. What type of epilepsy do you have?
I have what is called catamenial epilepsy, which is hormone-based epilepsy, which means just before my period, when my hormones shift, is when I will seizure.
Yeah.
So that's basically it.
Yeah, no, so fair enough. So in terms of obviously medication for that, how does that work? Because do you still get seizures all the time? Is it still...
Okay, I was diagnosed in 1997 when I was 17.
Right.
I was first of all prescribed quite controversial medication, sodium valproate, which I think has been in the press quite a lot recently.
Yeah, issues of pregnancy and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I was left on that until I was about 28, 29. And on that medication, I suffered difficulties with pregnancy, miscarriages, didn't control my seizures, was not a particularly nice drug to be on at all. Ultimately, my first marriage broke down, blah, blah, blah. So when I met my husband, who I'm married to now, we moved, and I moved doctors who had just finished his internship at a different hospital. So he said, right, well, let's sack your neurologist. And I thought, oh, I didn't realise you could do that. And you can. So we changed neurologists, who then just said, right, we need to get you off this drug if you want to have children.
Yeah.
So I moved on to Keppra and topiramate, which is hence why I'm an older mother. It was 34 when I had my first child. So I've got a 14-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Yeah, I'm on Keppra, so yeah, you know. But obviously there you've mentioned that you changed neurologists and stuff. Do you think one thing, because the other people I've obviously had on have been younger than myself, so they've been like early 20s. Do you find that since you're 17, have you viewed doctors' opinions of epilepsy changing, or was it just purely a different doctor was a better thing anyway?
I think from my point of view, my dad had epilepsy, so I knew about it anyway.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, the drugs he was on, you just can't get now.
Right.
I mean, he was on phenobarbital, which is like a very old-fashioned medication, but it worked for him, and they weren't going to change him as he drove. So there was never a stigma attached to epilepsy from my point of view, because it was already in my family.
Yeah.
So, but have attitudes changed massively? I think. I mean, I'm 50.
Yeah.
So yes, I think over the last 15, 20 years, the only thing that I think it has done, it's crept into the disability bracket, and I don't consider epilepsy to be a disability.
Okay.
From my view.
Yeah.
I've always worked, but then I still have seizures, but I have nocturnal seizures, which don't really debilitate you.
Yeah.
You just feel slightly woozy and hungover the next day.
Yeah.
But yeah, attitudes, stigma, there isn't. I think from my point of view, the more people that know, the better. Yeah. Because if you are likely to conk out in a street, or conk out in Morrison's, or conk out wherever, people know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, 100%.
And if they know you, if they know what's wrong with you, they're not just going to instinctively dial 999, which from my point, you don't need. I'm sure you feel the same. You don't need an ambulance every single time you have a seizure.
No.
There could be a reason, a valid reason why you seizures. You could be unwell, you could be on antibiotics, you could be something could have clashed with your medication, and you don't need to go to hospital every single time.
Yeah, I get you with that. Yeah. Yeah. No.
And it's
Yeah.
just a waste of money and a waste of your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. As I say, I think my first few that I had, yeah, definitely needed just the shock factor. I think that's more it, isn't it? But yeah, I get you in terms of it's not always an emergency. Yeah, I get that.
No. And a lot of the time you're better off at home
Just recovering.
rather than being shoved into an ambulance and shoved in the A&E. And then what can they do for you? Nothing. You have to see your neurologist. And what can they do for you? Nothing if it's a one-off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, no, I get you on that. Yeah. I think that is something that, to be honest, that hasn't been brought up in any of these, I suppose. So as everybody who I've had so far, if you've watched them, I don't know, but they've had different varying types of epilepsy. So yeah. So are yours just the tonic-clonic seizures that you do have, or I know you said nocturnal, but are they? So tonic-clonic.
I do have absences. Usually, if I'm incredibly stressed, I do get warnings. But I do have absences sometimes. Usually, when I'm chilled out and relaxed, that's when they'll hit me. But not as much as I used to. My warnings are usually, I feel like I've got an elastic band around my head.
All right. Just like really tight.
Really tight, and that's usually I can think, right, okay, now I know that I need to just take it, take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
Which isn't always easy. You can't always do that.
No.
But I think we can manage it. You can manage it. You can manage it with what you eat. You can manage it with exercise. You can manage it with not drinking too much alcohol. You can manage it with making sure you take medication on time, particularly with Keppra, because you have to take it 12 hours apart. It's one of the better medications. You can manage it with looking after yourself as well
best you can.
As best you can, and you can still lead a full life. But a lot of it, I think, is to do with people's mental attitude themselves, with how they feel about having the condition.
I think mental health does come into it quite a lot with. From my own personal thing, it took me a while, and Chloe and Abby both said this. It took me a while to get over the fact that they had epilepsy. Like, I think that's one of the big things of it. Quite
I think getting it later in life is harder. I mean, I was 17. I just started driving. I just got a car. So it wasn't the best time of my life, but it could have been worse.
100%.
I could have been behind the wheel of the car. So I think it is your mental attitude. A lot of it is your mental attitude. And I've always thought, no, it's not going to stop me doing anything.
Yeah, that's a positive way to look at it. 100%.
Within reason.
Yeah. It's learning your limits. Learning your limits, isn't it?
It is, and looking at the positive side of things, you get a free bus pass anywhere in the country that you can use anywhere in the country. Who can say they can get on a bus and go from where I live in Northamptonshire to Milton Keynes for nothing?
Fair, yeah. I've never claimed my free pass. I've just realised.
You should do that.
Yeah, I get the bus to work every day. I should really do that.
Yeah.
Cost me a fortune.
And you can use it in London. And you can use it in London. You can use it anywhere in the country, irrelevant of which council has given it to you. I mean, they do put you in with the OAPs, but I don't.
Fine. It's free.
Yeah, it's free. It is free. And that is a bonus.
Yeah, you take the best you can get, I suppose. Yeah, from it.
Yeah.
So in terms of kind of coming to grips with it, was because of your dad having it previously, was that kind of straight away for you? You were just kind of, it is what it is.
Yes and no. I think it was hard. My first seizure, I was at work.
Same.
I remember I remember it quite distinctly. So yeah, that was a bit weird. And I think we all go through that. Oh, that's really not fair because all my mates are driving and I'm not. I can't drive now.
Yeah.
And I think I couldn't really go clubbing because although strobe lighting didn't affect my seizures, I didn't want to take the risk.
So, yeah, I'm a bit the same on that to an extent, in that it doesn't affect me, strobe lighting, but it's still, I don't know if it's the anxiety of it, just or whatever. It does give me a bit, makes me anxious being around it.
Yeah, it does me, and that's why gyms now, all aerobics classes, anything that is aerobics now, they have to have flashing light, and I don't know why. They have to make it look like a nightclub. So again, that makes me anxious, and then if I'm anxious, I'm more likely to seizure. So yeah, there's those sorts of things that people have introduced, and I don't understand why everyone.
Yeah, I've been to a gym class recently, and yeah, it's the same. A bit weird on that. I didn't really get why it needed to be that, but it
just seemed a bit stupid. I noticed that particularly with some of the other younger girls, they said they felt isolated after they were diagnosed.
I think more so Abby, because it was Corona lockdown as well at the same time. So
we all felt isolated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a difficult time, and I think I suppose looking back on it, did I feel isolated? Did I feel like it wasn't fair? No. I suppose my attitude then was my dad felt guilty.
Right. Okay. Because he thought hereditary.
Right. But it wasn't. It was a completely different type of epilepsy.
I was going to say, if yours is hormonal and
complete coincidence.
Yeah.
So his was lack of oxygen at birth. Mine was so complete coincidence. So no, he felt really guilty. But I worried about my daughter for a while. Yeah. Thinking was anything, was she going to inherit? But no, I don't think she will. I mean, she's 14, nearly 15 now. She takes too much after her father, I think.
Okay.
So I think she's all right. But yeah, I suppose my 20s was probably the worst because I was on sodium valproate, and because then I didn't know what it was doing to my body.
I was going to say, I mean, it's quite a new study, isn't it, that's kind of came out about that. So for anybody who's just watching who doesn't necessarily know about it, do you want to kind of just explain a little bit in terms of?
Yeah, I guess they've likened it to thalidomide. Sodium valproate was, they knew about it. They knew about it as far back as the 60s, but they carried on prescribing it for women without telling them.
Yeah.
Because I think it was a fairly cheap anti-seizure medication that caused higher risk of miscarriage and higher risk of birth deformities, but not for everybody.
Yeah.
Some people gave birth to perfectly healthy children.
Yeah.
And there is a form of petition and court case going on at the moment with regards to it. Whether they'll get anywhere, who knows? But in the 90s, when I was taking it, there was no warning. There was nothing on the packaging to say, do not take whilst pregnant, or anything like that. It's bad enough taking the medication that, I mean, I took Keppra throughout my pregnancy.
Yeah.
And as a fairly new medication, they didn't know.
Yeah, as I said, they are checking into that at the moment, aren't they, and seeing if there's any issues.
Yeah, she's fine.
Yeah, she's
fine. She went through a bit of withdrawal. I couldn't breastfeed, but because it came through in the breast milk.
Right.
But then the human body's quite clever. I think the human body's quite clever. But yeah, she went through a little bit of withdrawal because I'm on topiramate as well, half of the month, which is a tranquilizer. Right. So she got some of that.
Yeah.
bless her.
But as long as she's fit and healthy now, that's all that matters.
Yeah, but I think you have to weigh up the risks as a woman of having a seizure while you're pregnant.
Yeah,
as to taking medication whilst you're pregnant. Yeah. And at that point, I think I was speaking to my neurologist. We were under a consultant anyway. At that point, and his expert opinion was, if you have a seizure while you're pregnant, that is a lot more dangerous than taking the medication that I was taking. Yeah. So it's up to, I think everybody has that choice if they want to come off their medication. So I know some people do, some people carry on taking it, but that's a personal choice. But
you do what you feel's right with it. That's the
exactly.
Because if you stop taking the medication, you get anxious, then more chance of the seizure. Again,
you're more likely to seizure. You are more likely to seizure.
And being anxious and being nervous while pregnant, anyways, is bad.
Yeah. And it's like when you've got a new baby, there's from epileptic mums, there's the advice to change the baby on the floor rather than have a changing table. You don't really need to know this because you're a guy.
But there is people who are watching who will know this. So.
There's the advice of doing that, not bathing the baby when you're on your own in the house.
Yeah.
And all this because you're sleep deprived anyway.
Yeah, so you're not
obviously not to sleep, to cohabit and sleep with the baby because you're on medication. And so I took all that and stuck to all the rules because luckily I didn't seizure with Rebecca when she was little. But I know people that do cohabit and sleep with their babies, and that's fine. That's their personal choice. But my personal choice is no, because I take some fairly heavy drugs at night.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to put the risk of rolling onto a newborn.
Yeah.
And obviously there is that element. You've still got that element of cot death plus on top of with taking medication as well.
Yeah. And if you're having nocturnal seizures as well.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously your other half can't take on the night feeding when they've got to go back to work, bless them.
Yeah. That bit of it as well, yeah.
So there's a lot of support out there for epileptic mums as well, with your health visitor. And
so I was going to come on to support a bit and stuff like that, not just with mums as well and stuff, but like in general, obviously, how, as we mentioned earlier, like opinions and stigmas and stuff have changed. How have you found support levels have changed, or has it always kind of been there for you, or were you quite single-minded on it?
There was nothing really in when I was young. There was no, obviously we didn't really have the web. Did we have the web in the 90s, end of the 90s?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, I was gonna say
just about. But there wasn't support groups. You couldn't go to a support group, even though if you think about the statistics of how many, 1 in 5 people have epilepsy, or something like that. I'm not sure.
1 in 8. Is it 1 in 8?
I can't remember. I know they put it on their website all the time. And I should remember, but
1 in 9. Might be 1 in 9.
1 in 9. You'd think there would have been support groups then, but I think then there was still a massive stigma attached to it.
Yeah.
In the 90s, and I think that started to go. Whether it's because you had some people that came forward that were more people that we knew. David Jason's son, for example, has epilepsy.
Right. Okay.
And I think David Jason spoke out about epilepsy in the early 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah.
So because you have some public figures or celebrities that started to speak out, it's like anything, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
They start to speak out about it, and then you had John Travolta's son that died of a seizure.
Yes.
You've got other people starting to speak out about it, so there isn't such a stigma attached. And then people will come forward, and then you'll find actually in my social circle
there's more people than you realise. Yeah.
2 or 3 other people that has suffered from either seizures when they were a baby, and then they've grown out of it, or seizures now, or some form of epilepsy at some point in their lives, or somebody in their family, or everybody knows somebody that has epilepsy, and then
I agree with that.
it doesn't become such a stigma.
I was going to say, I think for me, the way I kind of tackled it, because as much as wouldn't say there was a stigma, but you still felt people were a bit nervous around you and stuff like that. I started to then just tackle it straight. As soon as I met someone, I spoke about it in the last one, quite often friends-wise, when I meet them, I'll tell them kind of thing now a bit, or I'll make a joke about it, or more so in workplaces rather than just like kind of just in social circles, more kind of in workplaces. I'll crash that straight out, make a joke about it. That's my stigma kind of killed now, I think. I think that's how I kind of deal with it a little bit myself,
Especially at work, I think, because then you've got, obviously, because I always thought that whoever was the first aider used to get nervous and twitchy, and you say, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And I'd be like, nothing. Make sure I'm not banging my head against a wall. And that's it. You don't have to do anything unless this happens, unless I don't wake up.
That's what I'm
and like you said, if you make it in a light tone, then they're like, oh, okay, I don't have to do that. No, you don't have to do anything. Just leave me.
Right. I've noticed in a few workplaces that I've started in, possibly not the one I'm in now, but in quite a few other ones, is as soon as I've told them about epilepsy, the first aid is had to go watch a video about epilepsy, Always kind of thought that would just be a natural thing that would have kind of already.
I think my last workplace, was small. And I was made redundant after or during lockdown. But their first aider went off to watch a video about epilepsy.
Weird, isn't it? It's weird.
But they probably do about diabetics. You know, what happens if you go into hypoglycemic, or asthma? What do you do if you have someone has a really bad asthma attack? So it's, we sometimes, I think people read too much into it. And we think, we're not. It's just our brains. My best neurologist looked like Harold Shipman. Bless him.
It wasn't Harold Shipman.
No. He wasn't.
Okay.
But he did. He looked like Howard Shipman. His name was Dr. Ferguson Davis, and he was lovely. Mr. Ferguson Davis, sorry, he was a consultant. And he always explained to me, and he said, your brain has a certain level where it will switch off. And he said, normal people's brain, not normal people, but average people's brain will get to there. And he said, epileptics will get to here. And that's it. He said, your brain will say, I've had enough. And that's it. They'll just switch off and will just short circuit. And I remember him telling me that when I was about 22, 23. And that kind of made sense to me.
It's a good explanation of it. It's kind of a good way to think about it.
And it kind of made it not so scary.
I agree with that actually as well. I think that is a good way to kind of a good way to justify it to other people. I think actually. Not just yourself.
And to younger people that have developed it, I think that must be very scary. I mean, I've got a friend whose son he's 20 now, but he's been having seizures since he's probably about 10.
Right.
And it's as regular as clockwork. Once a month he's having them, bless him. And they're trying everything. I think they're going to try the high protein diet, which is supposed to be quite effective for children. Next. But it's like, I mean, even that trash bag, Katie Hopkins, bless her, she had brain surgery.
Didn't work.
To have her. She's still now.
Oops.
Shame. It still didn't work, but it got rid of epilepsy.
I'm gonna get a legal case on the back of saying that now.
No, don't put that out.
She needs some money apparently. So.
Bless her. But no, it's, I mean, I know that there are some people that have multiple seizures, but I used to have multiple absences. But luckily, did you hear the bossy teenager?
Want my tea?
That's
one thing I've noticed. One thing I've noticed with a lot of, I think people who don't necessarily think about epilepsy have focal seizures without realizing. I think, because I only started to realize that I was having them once I've had epilepsy. Like, I still do. Like, I haven't had a seizure in like 5 years, but I still do have focal. I do still, if I'm very, very stressed, I do have focal seizures still, or absent seizures that just drop me for about 10 to 15 seconds, whatever, like that, and then I'll be a bit zoned for the rest of the day. I think people who don't have epilepsy genuinely do suffer from that without realizing.
Because some ways they are scarier
than
a full-blown seizure.
Yeah, it's just your brain stopping and then kicking back in.
Yeah, because I used to have them a lot. I used to have a lot of those, and like you say, I'd be at work, and then you just, and I think they are scarier than passing out. Because then you sort of, and you're like, you come around and you think, what day is it? Where am I?
Yeah.
And
you also have that little thing of, shit, did I have a seizure as well? Like that. Yeah. But you look and realize nobody's moved, nobody's noticed anything, so you kind of realign yourself. But and
it's like looking at the clock and how much time has passed, and it's like they are awful.
I was gonna say, I genuinely can still kind of carry on whilst I'm having one, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm still kind of there. Nobody else would realize, sort of thing. Like, if I work in call center sort of thing, so I can still be carrying on the conversation. Nobody would ever realize that I've gone, but I know that I'm not there. Yeah, it's weird.
You just space out. I used to get a weird smell before they would come in. I used to get like this like burnt smell before they were coming.
I know what you mean with that. Yeah. Yeah, I do know what you mean with that. Yeah. The kind of, you feel the thing that people are supposed to have when they have a stroke, that kind of smell. Yeah. That's what. Yeah. 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 Scares the shit out of you. Yeah.
And then sometimes people think you're having panic attacks, or my consultant used to think I was having panic attacks and not seizures. At one point, but then my GP said, no, you are seizuring. Sorry to undermine your consultant, but you are definitely seizuring. But they are I think they are quite difficult to diagnose. Yeah. Those.
Yeah. Because they are so similar to so many other things.
Definitely. But yeah, it's not a nice condition, and it's a condition that can affect people
in different ways.
Very different ways. I mean, very severely. It can affect people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think my tonic-clonic seizures lasted about 2 years. I had them like every couple of months, whatever. And mentally, that wasn't nice at all. It's taken me 5 years now. It took me probably until I got to my 2-3 year mark of without seizures and stuff like that to kind of realize what's happened those 2 years. That, and I've mentioned on the other ones that, like, finding the epilepsy group, reaching out to Epilepsy Society, all that type of stuff didn't really come to me until the last couple of years, where I've kind of come to grips with it, I think. I think a lot of others are similar.
Well, you're not always ready to start talking with other people. I mean, I'm trying to think. My short-term memory is awful.
I think we all have that one. Yeah.
Awful. I mean, that is your seizures, and that is also your medication. Yeah. But I mean, my long-term memory is good, but if it doesn't get into my long-term memory, it's gone. It's gone. Yeah. It is dreadful.
Yeah, that's definitely something we spoke about in a few of these, about that short-term memory.
It really annoys my husband, but I'm just like, well,
Stop.
Yeah. It's just part of it. And sometimes it's just like remembering the words if you're tired
100%.
or you're trying to talk. I don't know, if I get tired, sometimes it's like I forget the words that I'm trying to say or that I want to say.
Yeah, it sort of comes out in a bit of a stammer, doesn't it? But it's not necessarily a stammer, but yeah.
No, it's just, you know, if you're tired and you just like you talk trying to. It's frustrating. It is frustrating, but
it you learn to live with it, and it
is what it is. And I think, however frustrating it is, you know, you're working. I've got two children, and I hopefully will be working again soon once they're back at school. We can work. You know, there are some people that can't work.
No, 100%, and heart goes out to them people. Like,
because it you know, we still want to use our brain, and
that's why I wanted. That's why I wanted to do this. That's the main reason I wanted to do this series kind of thing, was that it is a livable condition. It is, and it's not what it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago that people thought it was. It's not what I thought it was before I had it. That's why I wanted to do that. My stories bit of it was everyone's story is different. Everyone has a different way of dealing with it. The way you deal with it will be different to the way I've dealt with it. But the type of epilepsy you have is far different to the type of epilepsy I have. And that's kind of where I want to tell them stories, because the two previous ones quite similar epilepsy to me, whereas yours is very, very different sort of thing. So I don't know, would you, if you'd have been diagnosed say 20 years later, would your mindset have been different, do you think, to what it is now?
I don't know. I think possibly, because I suppose my upbringing in the 80s was, you know, you just get on with things. My parents are very much, you just get on with things. You know, you just cope with it, you just deal with it, you just get on with it. I wasn't given the opportunity to dwell on things. And I'd left school. I was working, and I carried on working. And I think then GPs tended to do more than they do now. So my GP knew what it was. Well, I worked at the Open University at the time, and we had a nurse, and the nurse knew what it was. So I wasn't frightened. So she knew what it was. The GP knew what it was. They put me onto Valium to begin with, just for a couple, which was fairly cool. And didn't do anything until I had a second seizure. Which I think is fairly still standard today.
It was, it said. I think everybody's given one seizure in their life, whatever. I think that's. I think it's Chloe who said that.
And then once I had the second seizure, then they put me on Tegretol, which was just like a blanket drug. And then I had, obviously I had ECG, or is it EEG? I can never remember. One's heart, one's your head.
EEG's the head, I think.
Yeah, EEG and CT scans. But I'm never quite sure what they're looking for. I'm sure they're looking for making sure there's nothing more sinister.
Making sure there's no clot. There's no tumour.
No clot or tumour. And then when they established the pattern of my seizures, they then put it down to the fact that it was my periods and it was the hormone shift. I'm just waiting to what happens when I go into the menopause, and nobody can really answer that question. So either the seizures will go, or they will get worse. And whether I can use HRT, that seems to be something that nobody can answer for me at the moment.
Has there not been many studies? As I say, has there not been many studies or many other people who have that same sort of? No, or nobody's actually. I mean, it's not an uncommon type of epilepsy, but it's not the most common type of epilepsy. So everybody's kind of different how they deal with it.
I mean, there's a lot of vitamins, mineral I can't take,
Right.
same as you, because they clash with medication. So you can't just go out there and same as you can't go out there and shove yourself full of vitamins.
Everything has to be checked with your doctor. Yeah.
It's the same with any condition. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful things, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm just about allowed to take sertraline, but the lowest dose possible.
Yeah.
I can't go up. But yeah, it's a challenge when you're on long-term medication, I think.
Yeah. Always, yeah. I think also with that, it's always kind of something that stuck with me from one of my cousins being on lifetime medication for something totally different when he was about 22-ish or whatever. I remember thinking, Christ, he's on for a lifetime, and then having to get my head around, yeah, I'm on for a lifetime now. Like, that's that kind of, still relatively young.
Yeah, but I think the good thing about the medication that is prescribed today is it doesn't do the damage to your liver and your main organs. For example, that the medication that my dad took, the older medication, I mean, the likes of Keppra and Deparamate, stuff like that, work like aspirin.
Yeah, Keppra has done damage to my kidneys a little bit. So it has. I'm rare in that, but it has so I take medication to battle that out as well. So, but I'm rare. I think it's good. It leveled me straight up. Like from taking it, I've been fine generally.
Yeah, I mean my dosage is 1,500 milligrams twice a day.
That's
and you can go up a lot higher.
Yeah, I'm on same as you. So.
Yeah, but no, I mean I have my bloods done every year, but my dad's medication ruined his kidneys and liver. But then he was 80 and he'd been taking it since he was 20. It's going to do it.
Yeah. Well, all medication's going to have a side effect to it.
Well, it is when you have to take it, like you say, for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But no, I think I think possibly a younger generation. I don't know. I just think GPs did more then.
Maybe. I was going to say, I mean, I was quite quick, well, not quick, but got to see a neurologist, and my neurologist was amazing. I can't think what her name is now. I didn't get to see her all that much, thankfully. So, but she was the one who put me at rest above anybody else. I think quite similar to what you were saying when you changed over neurologist. She put my mind at rest immediately. Lovely lady. So yeah, I think that side of it, because it's more a neurologist's job than a GP's job. I think that's the difference I'd probably say now. That's something I noticed. I don't know in terms of your experience on it, but that was something I noticed very quickly. Was the neurologist took straight over it. GP dealt with my tablets, but
yeah. I mean, I still speak to my neurologist once a year, or the epilepsy nurse, whoever, because I still seizure.
Yeah.
I speak to them once a year about medication, how things. I was seizure free, but then after my dad passed away, I started to seizure again. But then that was to be expected. And I still speak to my neurologist. Yeah. I've spoken to him twice in the last sort of like 6 to 8 months to see how my seizures are going. And he's happy as long as they're still nocturnal and they haven't gone back to daytime. Because I think that's more of a worry.
Yeah. I mean, nocturnal ones still aren't nice, but yeah.
No, I did quite a spectacular one in Morrison's during lockdown. Got my shopping pack for me.
Yeah.
Yes, I know most of the girls in Morrison's live, so there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you wear a mask and do what you're told.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a seizure. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. As long as you're doing okay, that's the most important.
Yes. Yeah, I've had my vaccines. We're doing okay.
Another perk.
Did you get side effects from your vaccines?
None. I was absolutely fine.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah, I got COVID back in November, and that did scare me a lot because I'm aware of things can piss around with your medication.
Yeah.
So I was
absolutely.
quite scared about getting that. Kind of dealt with it okay, to be honest. I was ill, but it didn't mess with my medication as much as I thought it would. Vaccines were absolutely fine. So yeah, people get your vaccines.
Yeah, a friend of mine got COVID, and then when she had a vaccine, she was really ill. But she was older. She's older than me, but the doctor put it down to the fact that she had antibodies already.
Yeah.
So once she had the vaccine, then her body was kicking off.
Yeah.
And her immunity was going, and that's why she felt so ill.
Was it just kind of like the boost? It's kind of a booster job sort of thing, then.
Yeah, but she had the vaccine quite soon after having COVID, which is possibly a mistake.
Yeah, it's supposed to wait about a month or so, 6 weeks or something. Yeah. My mum, when she had the jab, she wasn't particularly well after hers either. So yeah, it might be more of an older thing as well.
Yeah, my mum wasn't too bad after the first one. Second one, she felt a bit.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things that you kind of. I think I worried about him getting it more than I needed to, but it's just because you didn't know. Like,
well, no, and obviously high fever.
Yeah, I was quite lucky. I didn't get the temperature, so I was quite lucky with that. Which, yeah,
definitely. I just think they need to vaccine my daughter's age group, 14 to 17-year-olds.
Yeah,
because they're the ones that are moving around a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, especially if she's in a household with someone who's vulnerable as well.
Yeah. I mean, once they get back to school, it's like no masks, no bubble groups, year groups, 2,500 kids in her school.
How's your daughter kind of dealt with your epilepsy then? Is something she's growing up with, or?
She was really good. But I think by the time she was 4, she could deal with, if she needed to, she knew I'd address. Yeah, so she's I mean, luckily I haven't been too bad, but if I have seizures in front of her, it's not freaked her out.
So that's something I've noticed now. I mean, it's my circle, so I'm not really necessarily sure if this is kind of something that's kind of going beyond, but like my little niece, Rosie, she's amazing about epilepsy and stuff like that. She tells everyone about it because at her school they're really good at educating kids on it as well. When I was at school, don't think I've mentioned once, don't think I knew anyone who had it, didn't know anything about it. Whereas I don't know if that's just in her school that they're really good at it, or if you'll know better than me in terms of other schools, or is that something?
No, I think because most mainstream. Rebecca? Yeah. Have you got anyone with epilepsy in your class? No. Did you get taught about disabilities? No. Or have you had? Well, you know people that have got allergies and stuff, don't you? Yeah. You're told about that. Not really, no. Oh God, you're such a teenager. Yeah.
Killed my argument.
She's got, I think she's got a couple in her class that are allergic to. Yeah. So they've got someone that's allergic to peanuts, so they know that they've got an EpiPen.
Yeah.
So I think it's on a need to, if they've got
need to know
someone with a condition, they'll tell them not to do this, and they're not allowed to take peanuts in.
Yeah.
So they'll tell them. But yeah, I think kids are more robust than you realise.
I think that the generation kind of coming through, so the coming up to being 16, that sort of and below, I think they're probably going to be the most educated kids because they have so much access to everything. Is that they see things like this, they can watch this, they can see about 1,000 different disabilities, everything is there for them to, if they want to educate themselves, and they do seem to want to educate themselves, that kind of generation.
Yeah, they do.
I think that's only a good thing for us.
Absolutely.
As much as they get called woke or whatever, it's they're educating themselves. That's what I view it as.
But I think, you know, even, you know, our son's adopted. It didn't stop me from adopting.
Yeah.
So it doesn't stop you from, you know, kept social services happy.
Yeah.
Which they were quite happy with that process happening. You know, providing, like you say, you take medication, you're well controlled. Doesn't really stop you doing anything.
No. It's just understanding your limits, like I said earlier. It is, isn't it? It's just you know when it's going to happen. You know, to an extent, you know when it's going to happen. You know, you start to know where your triggers are and things. And
I think so, and I think also having a good.
Sorry, you went off there. Sorry, say that again.
When I was younger, you know, my diet was awful, and I think as you get older, or as you grow up, and particularly when you know, I think if I eat better, you know, if you eat well,
you start to stress less. Yeah,
I think that helps a lot. Eating well, eating, you know, it's all still, you know, your well-being, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
not eating too much junk food.
I think definitely certain epilepsy is definitely affected by that sort of stuff, like massively, because like you say, stress on your body. There is certain ones that it doesn't matter anything, that they're going to have seizures, they're going to be whatever, but certain ones like mine was and stuff like that, definitely how you are mentally 100% affected.
I know grapefruit juice affects quite a lot of epilepsy medication.
Yeah, I've seen a few people saying about that now. Yeah,
it does. I don't think it affects Keppra, but I know it affects some of the others.
Yeah,
but
weird.
It's just it's like you say, it's knowing your limits, getting enough sleep, which is also important. And
I don't think people understand.
And I always come away from my phone at about 2 hours, 2.5 hours before I go to bed, and switch it off.
Because my phone's on silent. It's away from me. I know I need I need my head break to go to sleep. Yeah.
And I think I know if I seizure at night time, which is, and when it's out of the blue, I know it's usually because I've been sitting on my phone for too long.
You've got your eyes are just.
Yeah. But no, that's always one that sets me off.
That was what I used to think mine was to do with sitting on a computer or sitting on phone all the time, stuff like that. Realizing it wasn't necessary from that was kind of when I didn't have my phone and just seizures, whatever. But that can play obviously a part into a lot of it as well, I think. So.
Definitely.
I say that while I sat on the computer right now, but
you're on my phone, but it's just flicking. I think it's the flicking through the apps and flicking through, you know, social media accounts, because you're flicking.
Yeah, it's just not turning your brain off, I think. Like you said earlier about our levels are here, the skills are up here. If you're getting, without realizing it, when you're playing on phones and computers and stuff, because we are stressing your brain out, and our brains can only take so much. So
And I'm really sad. I always have a bedtime. I always go to bed at a reasonable hour.
That's something I've, like I was saying, in the last 2 years, where I've kind of got myself over. I've realised my limits. I don't really drink that much, even if I did at weekend. I don't really drink that much. don't eat
No, neither do I.
I don't eat that much bad food. I go to bed at a really reasonable time, and I've just learned to adapt. So maybe it's a bit boring. It might be a bit more of a boring life, but it's a safer life.
No, same here. I do drink, but again, we don't drink a lot.
No.
And usually only at the weekends.
Yeah, that's, I had a bit of a binge session on Friday, so yeah, just
Right,
other than that,
You're
other than that, I haven't for a while.
But it's like it's what you drink as well, isn't it? It's
yeah, that avoid spirits. That's fine.
Yeah, but it's it's what you drink. It's knowing how much you've drunk, and not just going mad. But yeah, it's just like you say, in all of it, it's knowing when to stop.
It's just your limit, and like I say, I mean it's not a blanket thing for everybody, because like we said, other people have such different ones, and other people could be listening to this going, "Shut up," like sort of thing. But for us, we know our limits, and that's what it's about. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's because I'm old now.
Only as old as you feel. But,
well, yeah.
But right, anyway, I'm going to wrap this up now then.
Okay.
About an hour, I think we've been going here. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so yeah, it's been absolutely lovely to speak to you.
And you?
Like I say, it's totally different conversation to the other two that I've had as well. So it's quite interesting. But
yeah.
And this is what I wanted, was different conversations at a different side of it, really. One that I'm never gonna have to personally sort of deal with, if you know what I mean. So it's it is
an interesting one. Because like I said, it's not the rarest form of epilepsy, but it's not the most common.
Yeah, I was gonna say, before you told me about it, what was it, about 3-4 weeks ago, was it now? It wasn't one that I'd really heard of, and that's something I'm really realizing from this, is the amount of things that I just don't know about other people's conditions at all. So I'm learning every time I do these, to be honest. So
yeah, it's cool. It's good.
Yeah, but
get it out there.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, I'll hopefully have this one out some point in the next couple of days for you.
Okay, lovely.
I'll let you know.
All right then.
All right, but yeah, it's been lovely to speak to you.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.